working. All right, good afternoon again, good morning, shall I say. We're going to begin with our invocation. We have to ask Reverend Rice to come up and do our invocation for us. Wise.
All right. Good morning, my brothers. We'll go ahead, and because this is an event that recognizes all aspects of our humanity and of our manhood, we're going to make sure we incorporate that spiritual element as well. So we're asking that we can join together as we have an interfaith prayer. Gracious, almighty, beneficent, most holy God, we thank you for this day. We thank you that you just allowed us to see it. God, we know that it was not guaranteed that we would wake up this morning or even be able to have the strength to come out to this place. But God, we thank you that we are here right now, and we thank you for those who are watching. And God, as we go through this program, we ask that you would bless the time that we have together, that it would be constructed in a way that nourishes our hearts and minds, that strengthens us for the work that is ahead of us, and that allows us to build and strengthen the bonds of brotherhood amongst ourselves. God, so that the result will be stronger families, will be healthier children, will be a community that is built up and bolstered up by the strength of the fathers that you have put on this earth to guide and to strengthen and provide for and to protect these people around us. We pray that everything is pleasing and acceptable in your sight. And all of the people of God said together, amen. Amen.
As always, to God be the glory. Thank you so much. You know, before we begin, I want to just remind everyone about the tickets that you received when you came in. You're going to see numbers posted on the screen periodically. And whenever you have an opportunity, not to disturb our main speaker or anybody, when you walk out that door to the main entrance, there are some ladies there who will have your book. So all you do is show your ticket, match your number, and you can pick up your free copy of the book, okay? So without further ado, your host for the afternoon, come on up, man. Come on up. Brother Ron, this is our built-in Master Mason. Huh? Master Man, right?
Good morning. Come on, let's give ourselves a big round of applause this morning. And give God all the glory for making it happen, because again, we want to welcome you to the 10th annual Union County Fatherhood Conference. My name is Stanley Neron, and I am going to be your moderator this morning. For the past 10 years, we have been celebrating the Union County Fatherhood Initiative and Conference, and we have done it in many forms and many likes. And over the past 2 years, and that's why it's so important that we give thanks, we were virtual. And we were trying to figure out how to do it, but we did it anyway, and we were able to still celebrate our ambassadors that we have here with us today, because I consider you all to be ambassadors of fatherhood, because, you know, iron sharpens iron, as Proverbs 27:17 says, and this is what you are. This is who you are. We all make each other better when it comes to fatherhood. We strengthen each other, we give each other life, we give each other inspiration, we encourage each other when times get hard. And we know as fathers, there's a lot that's put on us. There's a lot of challenges put on us to be the very best and to provide all the time, every time, no matter what is before us or ahead of us or beside us. There are several challenges. And we come here every year to do this conference to strengthen each other, lift each other up, provide resources, and make sure that we can create other ambassadors in our community, throughout this community, throughout the state, throughout the country, to set the example and set the tone as fathers. So I'm so excited to be here with you today. And without further ado, I want to bring forward one of our key visionaries who has not only been a father figure to me for many, many years, but he is a father figure to many in the community. He has inspired so many people, so many young men. He has kept this train moving forward. And I want you to put your hands together for our executive director, Mr. Rod Spearman. Let's give him a big round of applause.
Good morning. I'm not going to hold us up. I want to bring greetings to everyone as the chairperson. Would like all the fatherhood members, team members to stand up, please, so we can see all of you, so they can be recognized. All right, let's give them a round of applause. Thank you, thank you. Thank you. My second duty is I want to make sure that we recognize on the back of all our sponsors, including all of them, large and small, Trinitas Regional Hospital with St. Barnabas was one of our key major sponsors to really make this happen this year. Our overall operating budget to make this happen is $25,000. So we want to thank all of you that support us and given. My third duty is I'm not going to ask you to read or not going to read the statement because for time and we need to move forward. Before that, just to know that we're going to give our keynote speaker his time. The workshops will be given on their time. We may run a little behind schedule, but we're going to do that. The final thing is I want to share to you, it's critically important that we support, and Union County Fatherhood supports this, to stop the gun violence. It is critical that we as fathers and men in Union County and all over stand up, shout, and talk about stopping the gun violence that affect our children, our kids, and the community. So with that, I want you to remember that and recognize. So send messages to your public officials, talk about it in the community, stop the gun violence. None of us are against guns, that people do hunting with it all, but this unnecessary carnage that's being done to our children and community is unnecessary. So we want to share that and support that. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Rod. You know, and not only gun violence, but the injustice being done around the country with violence and senseless deaths. You know, just recently, I saw the story of George Stinney. And I don't know if you ever heard the story of George Stinney, but George Stinney was executed and wrongfully accused for killing two white young ladies in the South. And he was executed at the age of 14 and never given just due. And 70 years later, he was found to be not guilty after he was executed. So reading that article brought tears to my eyes, and it reminded me of the fight that we fight each and every day as we seek justice and empowerment for our young people, but especially our young Black men in this country, you know. But we have a duty as fathers to stand for justice and stand for what is right. So this morning, I have the honor of presenting to you somebody who speaks of justice, somebody who speaks of empowerment, somebody who inspires. He is named one of the 25 most influential African Americans in New Jersey in 2016, and he is the project manager and chief estimator of the consulting firm Uplift Property Solutions New Jersey, LLC. Mr. Simfax is the award-winning author, From the Block to the Boardroom. He is a 2014 White House Champion of Change honoree, a founding launch partner with the Obama's administration Fair Chance Business Pledge, and was the Empower Magazine's 2014 Person of the Year for his diligent work in the reentry field, for being a strong advocate for the formerly incarcerated. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, please put your hands together and please welcome our keynote speaker for the morning, Mr. Tracy D. Simfax.
Thank you, Brother Stan, very much for that introduction. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Oh, come on, we can do a little bit better than that. We got all these men in here. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. There we go, there we go. I'm gonna see if I can, there we go, pull this clicker up. Before I get started, I first want to thank God. For truly, without him, I wouldn't be here today. If it was left up to me, I'd be somewhere in my grave or in a cell. So I thank God for every opportunity that he has bestowed upon me. I thank God for my being. I thank God for my wife, my life, and my family, because it's truly, truly didn't have to be like that. I want to also thank Ron and the double Rons, and Rod and all the brother and my dear friend Maria for affording me this opportunity to come share a story of what I like to think of hope, redemption, reconciliation, all the things that we should do as men. I want to take you guys and ladies too on a little journey this morning. Talk a little bit about my story from the block to the boardroom. Some of you may have already heard my story, but what some of you have not heard is going to be an untold story. And some of you are going to get that untold story today. Is actually going to be out in my new book that's going to come out probably by the end of this year, early next year. So this is a great opportunity. And I always say, God don't make mistakes. Coming out of the pandemic, this is a great opportunity not only to get in front of 100 Black men, but also to get in front of a live stream audience, that they will hear a message of what we have to do as fathers in our communities. So from the block to the boardroom is going to be my untold story. From the block to the boardroom, I am a shore baby. I was born in Asbury Park, New Jersey, home of Danny DeVito, Wendy Williams, and Tracy Syphax. I moved to Trenton when I was at a very early age. Me and my mom moved to Trenton when in the early 60s, after my mom and my father divorced. So my from the block to the boardroom story is like so many other stories of a young man growing up, single parent household. I had a tragic trauma experience that happened to me, and a lot of us don't get an opportunity to talk about this at a young age. But at the age of 8, my only brother was tragically killed. And what I've learned over the years, I'm 59 years old now, but what I've learned over the years that some of the traumatic experiences that we face as children, that we face before we even hit the age of 28, affects us years from now if we don't have an opportunity to deal with that. So at the age of 8, I experienced that first trauma by losing my brother. He was tragically killed in a truck accident on his way to the store to buy something to go to school. At that time, that gave me my first glimpse into what community organizing was all about. Because see, I talk in my book, From the Block to the Boardroom, how that community has spoke oftentimes about putting a light up at a corner where our kids go across the street every single day. And it never happened. It never happened until my brother was killed. And when my brother was killed, they put up what? They put up a blinking light. Of course, you know, in the 60s, communities would come together, and they would come together in numbers, and they would stand up for what's right. We didn't need a blinking light. We needed a regular light that would let our children safely cross the street. They rioted that night, and they tore that light down. The next morning, they came back out, the police, the community, hundreds of people from the projects where we lived at. And soon, they had a real working light that's there today, some 50-something years later. That gave me my first glimpse as an 8-year-old. But as I went through that traumatic experience, and my mom, who lost one of her children, had to also deal with that traumatic experience, she had to uplift me and her from Trenton, New Jersey, and move to Texas. Now, I don't know if anybody know about Texas in the early 70s, but let me tell you something. It wasn't sidewalks and blacktops. So a child coming from the inner city of Trenton, New Jersey, moving to Texas, where I have dirt roads and unfamiliar territory, I was completely in a whole different world. But what I realized soon as we got there was that traumatic experience number 2 was soon to hit me. Soon as we arrived there, my mother was incarcerated for marijuana possession. I was sent directly to foster care. So mind you, now I'm dealing with the loss of my brother. I'm in Texas, and I'm with a family that I'd never even seen before in my life. 6 months spent there. At that time, 6 months spent there, I was abused as a child, sexually abused by one of the caretakers there. That was number 3. My aunt sent for me from New Jersey, had me back into New Jersey within a couple of months. But when I got back, I was damaged. I was so damaged that I began to act out like so many of our other kids in school, around my other peers, and along with my family. By the time I was 11 or 12 years old, I was doing drugs. By the time I was 11 years old, I was stealing cars and acting out like so many of our other kids. And far too often, we ask that question, what's wrong with you? And a lot of times, we don't get opportunity to talk about what's really going on. So I began to deal with that through the drugs, through the destructive behavior. By the time I was 16, 17 years old, I did my first jail stint. Once again, I'm leading right down that path. My first jail stint was in Yarville Youth Correctional Facility in 1980. I went to Yarville and I was sentenced to an indeterminate 10 years. Indeterminate 10 years, anybody don't know about the correctional system, is anything from 1 day to 10 years. It's up to you to do what you need to do to get out. Now, I'm not a dummy. So when I went in there, I did what I needed to get out of jail. I programmed. I went to leadership classes. I took carpentry classes. I did everything that I needed to do to get out of jail. But one thing that I missed is that I did not learn the lesson of why I was there. So I came home, like so many other people that I recognized in jail, I came home with the attitude that I could be a better drug dealer. I always felt that I was an entrepreneur. Even though I sold drugs to support my habit, one of the things I was able to do through that 17 years as being a heroin addict and a crack addict was that when I was on the street, I never was out my drug of choice. Only time I was ever without my drug of choice is when I was in prison. I was an entrepreneur. I knew product, I knew sales, I knew marketing, I knew networking. I knew everything it needed to be a successful entrepreneur. I had the wrong product. So when I came home in 1983, I lucked up, got a job as a roofer. Let me tell you something. Nobody that I know in my life aspires to be a roofer. It was a trade that I learned, but it was something that I mastered. And it's going to serve me later on in my life. And I'll tell you a little bit about that story later on. But it was a trade that I mastered. So what I did when I came home in 1983, I think I was going to get slick. Learned the trade, got me a little business set up. I'm going to run drugs up and down the turnpike in this truck with tar in the back, and the police will never know it's me. In the 80s, as you know, in New Jersey, racial profiling was at its highest point here in New Jersey. So once again, I'm trying to be smarter, a better criminal. What I learned along that way, you can never be a better criminal. You can never be a better criminal. What I learned along that way was that sooner or later, that would catch up with me. By 1988, I was back in the drug game. By 1989, I had a bullet lodged in my spine, spent 3 weeks in the hospital in a coma. By 1990, I was on my way back to prison. This time for 4 years. But one of the things I learned when I went through prison was that some of the most creative, some of the most innovative, some of the most brilliant people I've ever met, I met in jail. If anybody ever seen a jail card, Christmas card from jail, they put Hallmark to shame. And that's the truth. So some of the most creative people. So as I began and did that time, it was a time that I spent in Rahway that changed my life. In 1992, Rahway State Prison, I spent a year in ASSEG. And anybody know what ASSEG is? It's 24-hour lockup. You don't come out for a half-hour shower, half-hour rec. During that time, I was able to read the Bible from cover to cover, and it changed my life. I came home from jail in 1993 and made a vow to myself, for my God, and that was never going back to jail. Since that time, I became a successful author, entrepreneur. I've not only created one business, I've created 3 businesses. I took a roofing business from 0 to $1.8 million in 6 years. I'm talking about just off of that experience. That experience that I experienced, that creative talent that I know that we all have in us, is what I use to propel my future. So as I became a successful author and entrepreneur, I spent my past 28 years not only being a successful businessman, but being an advocate for those who are formerly incarcerated. As Stan talked about earlier, White House Champion of Change, out of unprecedented 900 nominees from across this country, I was one of 12 of Obama's White House Champions of Change, one of 25 most influential African Americans in the state of New Jersey, along with Mayor Ross Barack and Senator Booker. I'm talking about someone who was formerly incarcerated. But I'm also going to tell you, as I told you earlier, that I'm going to tell you an untold story. Because as I went through all that success, guess what? All those things I talked about earlier, I still had to deal with those too. Because those are the hidden demons that we don't deal with. Those are the things that we go through life and we mask far too often. So I want to tell you how I felt my family during that successful rise, how I was as a father, and what it took for me to redeem myself. So when I talked earlier a little bit, and I like to use a mic, so I'm gonna grab this other mic just in case I can move around a little bit. So as I begin to talk about some of the trauma, as I begin to talk about some of the trauma that I faced as a young man, I begin to talk about some of the shame, some of the loneliness that I felt, some of the things that I'm fine, thank you. Some of the loneliness that I felt, and some of the things that I did to mask that up. Success was a great opportunity for me to hide that trauma that I was going through. And I had to learn from a very young age how that gave me permission to do a lot of stuff that I was doing that people never even knew about. One of the things we do as men, we try to mask our masculinity and the things that we're going on through our womanizing activities. I went through a lot of that as a young man. Because see, when I got off drugs, you go from one drug addiction to another addiction. It's all addiction. And once I found out that I had to deal with those demons, I had to get real with myself in 2001. I had to really look at myself and find out what was I running from. And just like Paul did in the Bible, when he asked Jesus not once, not twice, but 3 times to remove that thorn. And I kept asking God, because one of the things was going on with me, I was committing adultery as a man and feeling bad every time I did it. So then I realized that it was something internally wrong with me. I never really dealt with those issues I had to deal with. So in 2006, I became counseling, began seeking some of the things that I knew that would help me and my then wife get through some of the things that we were going through, some of the things that I was dealing with. And as I went through those stages in my life, and as we began that counseling, and even though that counseling did not save my marriage, what it helped me know that I needed that. So when I left counseling, guess what? I did more counseling. I did more therapy. I began to do the internal work on myself that I needed to do in order to heal myself. You know, the great Muhammad Ali once said, if a man thinks the same at the age of 20 as he did at 50, he has wasted 30 years. I'm 59 years old. Seen a lot, been through a lot, can teach a lot. But one thing I learned that if you can't be the best version of yourself, if you're not right with yourself, if you're not right with yourself, you will never, ever be the best version of yourself. So as I began to look at that and look at myself and internalize all the things that I had gone through, doing my therapy, talking and making sure that I'm communicating to folks in a more deeper way through my faith, through meditation, through yoga. How many men here do yoga? Okay, we got a couple. Well, we're going to start a thing we're going to call Broga. We're going to bring yogas and brothers together. But I say that to say, I recognize that over those years, And especially during the pandemic. And one thing I learned about the pandemic is that if you didn't come out of this pandemic with a new skill, a new hobby, a new way to take care of yourself, time was not your problem. So what I learned through this pandemic is that I increased my meditation, increased my yoga, increased the way that I view things and my family. And in that same process, in 2020, I met a young lady that will begin to just open up a whole world that I never knew existed when it comes to communication, when it comes to family, when it comes to what that means. Now I have a blended family now. I have a beautiful wife who's with me now in the back, my dear wife, Cherie. I have a blended family of 4 daughters, 1 son, 3 granddaughters, 3 granddaughters. So, you know, we have to show up for our kids. And we can't wait generation after generation to make that happen. One of the things that I learned in this journey is that in order for us to be really healthy men and show up as healthy men in our community, we have to work on ourselves. We have to be able to not only work on ourselves, but we have to be able to communicate with one another. One of the things I've learned now is that I've been a great opportunity now, and I teach entrepreneurship in the juvenile justice system. I teach our young kids how to start and run businesses. And one of the things that I learned is that, you know, God has truly blessed me with the ability to do that. And it's something that I really, really love doing. But what I learned over the time that I've been doing it, I've been doing this, another part of the business that I do, is that our kids are amazing. Our kids are amazing. And if we give them the opportunity to be creative, to be what they really want to be, and I know I'm in a college, but just realize college is not for everyone. Vocational, technical, college, yes. Entrepreneurship, yes. Everything that our kids desire should be on the table for them, and that should be offered to them. So learned that over the years is something that I love very much. One of the things I love about this picture is that I found out that Governor Christie is not tough as he is. He prays to be tough. He's not that tough. But one of the things that he did, and I thank God, he gave me an opportunity in 2018. He gave me a partner. He gave me an executive partner of that career of a lot of convictions that he just wiped away. And those convictions that were wiped away have given me the opportunity now to do a lot of things that I could not do before. A lot of things that I really should have did when I was 20-something years old. When I came home from jail in 1983, I had that opportunity right there. As a young man who knew he was an entrepreneur to start my career. Sometimes it's like taking a long way to school. You don't have to travel that far to get there. And I ended up having to take the long road, but through it all, God has protected me and kept me. So what I want an opportunity to just to share with you real quick is just some of the opportunities that God has bestowed upon me. I talked a little bit about the entrepreneurship program that we do. One of the other things that God has allowed me to do is now with my wife. You know, Black love, and love is a beautiful thing. And what we try to do now through social media outlets and through everywhere, and our wedding was featured in Black Enterprise, and we did a special on 2020 where we talk about Black love and what that means in our community. Healthy families and healthy relationships, and don't be afraid to show it. Because one of the things we always need to be, we need to be an example. We need to be an example of what Black love, Black family, and a healthy Black family looks like. And as I stated earlier, we shouldn't have to wait 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 generations to get there. I can't say enough how proud I am to be in front of you guys this morning, to see that 100 men came out this morning at 8 o'clock to hear this message, to be here for a conference, to be able to go back to their community and do just that. Build healthy families and build healthy communities. So with that being said, I just want to say, every morning that I get up in the morning, I spend an hour reading the Bible and meditating. And sometimes I close my eyes, and I did it this morning before I came here. There's an exercise that I do every morning because I'm always want to be conscious of how I'm showing up. So there's an exercise I want you all, if you don't mind indulging me in, and I know it's the morning, we done ate, we feel a little relaxed, but if everybody would just get up for 1 minute, I just want to indulge everyone in the exercise that I like to do. And I think it's something, if we practice more, I think it's something that we can use in our lives to better see where we need to be in life. One of the things, as I said, I do in the morning is an hour of reading the Bible and another hour, 45 minutes of meditation. So what I want you to do right now for me, I want you to close your eyes. I want you all to close your eyes. Now I want you to close it because I'm looking at you. I did it this morning. But I want you all to close your eyes. I want you just to think, especially you fathers, especially you sons. I just wanted you to think of if you showed up tomorrow and if you just imagined yourself at the highest point of your life in business, in family, in community, in everything. You're at the top. Everything you imagine. And then I want you to open your eyes. And I want you to wake up and open your eyes. And tomorrow, I want you to begin that and go out to your community and be just that. And it's really that simple. Thank you all for having me. I appreciate you. Give yourself a round of applause.
Thank you for those inspiring words. Let's give him another big round of applause. Well, we have a full day ahead of us, and we don't want to hold anybody up, but we really just want to get into our workshops, and we have the best of the best that are going to be facilitating these workshops. Please engage, please get involved, and we hope that you enjoy them. I'm going to read out the names in the rooms where each workshop is, and whatever workshop you've signed up for, you can go there. And that will start as we're speaking now. So room 306 is Responsible Black Fathers. It's a panel discussion. You will see at the elevator, if you are looking for your room, when you go to the elevator, you'll see where the rooms are. 307 is Responsible Latino Fathers. 308 is Emotional Wellness Panel, room 308. Room 401 is the Physical Wellness Panel. So you have those to select from. The session is from 10 to 10:40 a.m. And then session B will start from 10:50 to 11:30 a.m. And the same rooms will apply to those particular workshops. All right. Yes, sir. Okay. All right. So we're a little bit behind. So time will be adjusted and everybody will do their full workshops. We're just going to push it back about 18 minutes. All right. So we can exit the room now at this time. And somebody lost an. Oh, that's okay. Again, enjoy the day. Thank you for coming. Give yourselves another big round of applause and let's have an amazing and blessed day. Thank you, fathers. 4 groups, yeah.